welcome to episode 8 for What About This? This episode we're talking to Kyle Rice from Project 54 Outreach. We had mentioned his organization back in episode 4 when we were talking about short-term missions, so we wanted to have him on to talk about his experience helping the homeless out in Skid Row in Los Angeles. So we talk about a lot of things. Kyle tells us just a small part of his story about his incredible journey that he has where he's gained the heart for the homeless up in Skid Row and the way it's impacted his life and the way he's been able to start an organization up there and help the homeless up there, help the people living up in Skid Row. So we talk about sort of the complexity of homelessness, how it's not just it's not just that someone doesn't have a house to live in. There's so much more to it. There's so much more that goes into not just the problem, but the solution. We talk about what really is needed to solve it. So we talk about listening, loving, what we can do as individuals, what we do as a group, and what we need to do to actually serve the people up on Skid Row just a little bit better than we have, and not just a little bit, a lot better than we have. So please check out Project 54 Outreach. They have a website, which we'll put in the show notes. They have other ways to contact them. So we hope you guys learn a lot from this episode, and let us know whether you want to get involved or any other feedback that you have. Thanks, guys.
If you're tired of sifting through flea markets for rare and unique games, we can help. Retro City Games in Henderson, Nevada, only 5 minutes from the Las Vegas Strip, has all your favorite gaming staples, classics, and a wide selection of rare games with new stuff always appearing on our shelves. Come in and chat with Nicole or Doug about your love of games and watch as they help you complete your collection or find your childhood favorite. And don't forget, Retro City Games loves trade-ins. So if you have any Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, Xbox, PlayStation, or even PC games, come in and visit Retro City Games today. Welcome to the new metropolis of gaming, Retro City Games.
Hey out there, what about this, listeners? We are back at it. This episode is stemming out of an earlier episode 4 on short-term missions, where we mentioned a friend of ours, Kyle Rice, who runs Project 54 Outreach up in Skid Row. So we have him on the podcast today. We're going to be talking about that and homelessness and some other topics. So I'm going to introduce Kyle, and he's going to give us a little bit of background on what Project 54 Outreach does. So Kyle, why don't you tell us?
So Project 54 is kind of, it started out as a calling for me that I thought God was really telling me to help out the people of Skid Row. So our main focus is two beliefs: that everyone should always have a Bible, no matter their circumstances, and also just really putting our faith in God, knowing that He can change any life. And how we do that is not just telling people about God, but actually walking through their faith with them through the whole process.
Okay, and then what are some of the events, or what are some of the things that you guys actually do?
Well, we have a monthly event that is, it's called Brunch in Skid Row, where basically we bring a professional chef, Kyle Powers, from Fork in the Road Catering, and he basically makes food in front of everybody with a lot of our staff. And we also pass out Bibles, Christian literature. We have a big shopping area for toiletry kits. And just recently, Kyle here played a DJ for us, played some music.
There are two Kyles here.
Yes.
Yeah.
And but the main focus of why we do it is we set up these huge tables, and it's basically we try to create an atmosphere, a community atmosphere, and the whole purpose is not really the food or the toiletry kits. It's mainly just getting to know the people and actually showing them love.
Yeah.
And so.
Oh yeah, and all 4 of us were up there this last Saturday, right? Because we just ran one. It's the last Saturday of every month. Is that correct?
Last Saturday of every month.
Yeah, so we were all up there. It's a great event. I've been a couple times. Travis, how many times have you been?
A couple times.
Kyle,
that was
there's
my
your
first
first time. Ryan, you've
Couple
been
times, yeah.
A couple times, yeah.
You got invited to DJ?
Yeah.
You didn't have to put in work?
I gave myself the easy job.
So today's episode, we're going to stem out of the Project 54, but today's episode is going to be focused on homelessness and the church and Christians, what we as Christians should be doing, and just some of the things that go around that. And so we're going to talk about that. So let's start though first by Kyle Rice.
Not DJ Kyle?
No, not DJ Kyle. What are some of the things that you've learned about homelessness because you've been doing it for about a year now? It's the Project 54 is about a year,
It's
a little over?
A year and a half, Project 54.
Year and a half. Yeah. So what are some of the things you've learned in the last year and a half about homelessness up at Skid Row?
Well, as a lot of you guys know, I've kind of been around homelessness at a different level for a long time, but it just recently is when Project 54 started, I kind of really started thinking about how faith kind of runs in with it, and it kind of turned everything on its head for me. And actually, homelessness is very complex. You can actually take any problems or sin in the world, it kind of almost relates to homelessness. There's prostitution, there's alcoholism, addiction, poverty, mental illness. It's just such a complex issue. And I think that's one of the hard things that we actually have to overcome as Christians. And I think that's why a lot of people choose not to even touch homelessness as one of their ways to serve.
Is because why?
Just, it's complex. How do you solve a problem that is so hard, you know? It's not like it's just one agenda, it's you're fighting a whole bunch of agendas. And it's also such a, it's really sad too. When you get to know people at that level, and that's what we're really about, trying to create that relationship with them, that's what makes it hard.
So tell us how maybe from the day that you had, if you even want to tell that story, that encounter with that man, and how, the way you understand poverty and homelessness today versus how you approached it kind of before you jumped in and started this whole project. Maybe that would give us like a little bit of an understanding of what you've learned and what has kind of shaped and changed the way you approach even these events that you have, how you approach it, why you approach it, what you're doing, more than just passing out food. Even though it's bomb food, it's good food, it's not a bad idea.
So my wife likes to say, bring this up, and it's kind of embarrassing, but I really, if I can say this as a Christian for many, many years, is I actually did not like homeless people. It was just the nature for me, that it was hard. There was this very big distinction that I thought I was completely on the other side of life for them. And then one day, the story that kind of started Project 54 was I was in Skid Row, and a homeless person stopped me, and they pulled out a Bible out of nowhere, and the guy was legitimately had some serious mental illnesses, and he stopped and he clearly spoke to me with a Bible in his hand, saying, "God needs you to start helping these people," and he pointed to Skid Row. I told the guy to leave me alone, and then he started pointing to some verse in the Bible and started getting angry with me. He's like, "No, you need to listen. God's calling you to start leading these people." And trying to blow him off, and then he kept trying to get my attention. He's like, "No, you need to start listening. God's trying to tell you to start leading these people. They need a leader out here." So he folded up his Bible and started talking about like butterflies or something like that after. You know? So it really got me thinking for the first time in my faith, though, you know, that how do you really help out Skid Row? Skid Row is 54 blocks, it serves 10 to 12,000 people. It's the third biggest homeless camp in the world, and I saw nothing but violence, and I saw nothing but addiction and poverty, and it was really hard to see past that. And Project 54 kind of started was a belief. I was trying to wrap my head around this problem. How do you solve this problem? And it kind of just came to me one day that, oh, maybe if there was more Bibles in Skid Row than needles and crack pipes, maybe that would kind of make a dent. And that's literally, we just started buying Bibles and giving them out. That's kind of how it started at the very beginning.
So when you use that word complex, is what you're saying is the reason people don't touch it, or the reason people, is it because of the way you view it? When you say complex, kind of flesh that out a little bit. Like, what do you mean by complex?
It's hard to understand, and it's complex in two forms. That basically, that what you're saying, you can look at someone physically homeless and you can automatically tell that they're homeless, and you can automatically tell the distinction that I don't understand what it's like to sleep on a sidewalk. I sleep in a huge house, right? Or even if I don't sleep in a huge house, I sleep in an apartment. I don't have to worry about my food, and I stress about money, but it's not to the level where it's, you know, I'm worried about what I'm going to eat, and also we're not trained how to handle homelessness. We are not. We're not trained to say, okay, this guy has 3 different mental disorders. How do you talk to someone? Or someone we have people that that go to CR and they come down who were addicted to drugs for years, but they even tell me with tears in their eyes, I don't understand how the addiction got that bad. Or I don't understand what it's like to be a prostitute in order to survive. And I think when you come front with that as Christians, we're just kind of like, okay, well, I don't want to touch that one because I'm so far from that.
So is part of the complexity then the unwillingness as us as Christians or just people in general, an unwillingness to step inside of their story to try and understand, to begin to understand?
Yeah.
Is that part of the complexity, that I guess that part of it is, like you were saying, like when you first, the way you used to look at homelessness versus how you understand it on a deeper level now, and your desire to help and be a part of that process.
Yeah, basically, I really thought that we had to solve the problem. I really thought that when you looked at someone you had to solve, it was kind of like a Rubik's Cube, right? We look at a Rubik's Cube like, man, this is ridiculously hard. Maybe not for people like Keith, but for people like me that are common.
I cannot solve it.
Yeah.
Well, with all your time off.
You have 15 weeks this summer.
Sorry, 7. Yeah, I tried once.
like
It didn't work out.
So
Just take all the stickers off and rearrange them.
exactly, cheat the system. So I think, but that's what we do is that Christians, we look at it and say we have to solve this problem. And that's what I was trying to do, and when it's complex, but when you really dive down to it, homelessness it may be complex, but the answers are still the same. That how do you solve it is just the same as any other ministry or any other type of problem solving.
I think I feel that on like a personal level, like when you're talking about how it's complex and so people don't want to touch it because they don't have any answers and things like that. I feel like I'll be driving and I'll see a homeless person, and in my mind I go, and you should stop and try and do something. But then I have that other side that makes me keep driving because now I'm fighting with myself going, so what, are you just gonna stop every time you see a homeless person? And so then I was really having that internal struggle of like, so when do I stop and when do I not? Like, what do I do? Like, and I think Project 54 is a great example of this, is that then I was reading this book called No Easy Jesus. And it happened to, like, I literally happened to read this chapter right as I was wrestling back and forth with this. And he said, basically the author says, I get it. Like, I was like, man, did he, like, hear me? Because it's like, I get it. You can't stop every time you see a homeless person and give them the shirt off your back. And he said, so the answer to your question of when do I help is when your resources directly meet the need in front of you. And I was like, yeah, I guess, yeah. And then I see something like Project 54, and I go, that's it. It's we have these resources sitting directly in front of a need, and so I see that too. Which what I mean by that is how Project 54 is taking action in terms of allowing people a way to help with a problem that seems so large on an individual level.
I think too that it's that one of the things that you can even add to that though, and what I learned from this and from especially from what I just told you, is you have to listen. I think sometimes we have this internal struggle, but there is a difference when you listen to when you feel God is calling you to do something. Because one of the things that I love about what I have learned and what other people have learned is it just didn't stop on Skid Row. You know, there are times where I do stop. And I do have a conversation with homeless people. I go shopping with homeless people on a regular basis. It's actually kind of whenever somebody asks me for food, even in my hometown, I say, okay, grab a cart, and we go hang out for 45 minutes, we go shopping. When do you stop and when you don't? I think it really comes down to when you feel God's calling you to. And I think that we're not listening as a generation, that we really lost touch with that. I think sometimes, there's been many times where I've sat at church, and I tell people this all the time. I knew Project 54 was supposed to start years ago. And I had many opportunities to that I don't like to talk about, where people wanted me to help out with homeless ministries, and I chose not to. There's days I can actually remember during worship service and other things like that, God was calling me. He's like, man, you need to start doing something. And I remember it in my heart, and it just literally took that instant where that homeless person came up to really open my eyes. So take it to the level is maybe sometimes when you're driving and you really pray about it, you go and ask God, is this what you want me to do right now? Mm-hmm. We actually had a girl at our last event. My wife was telling me this amazing story where this girl, she came to Project 54 event and she was passing out Bibles, and she was actually, she wanted, after the experience, she's like, I really want to talk to homeless people. But she didn't know. She's like, do I do it now? What do I do? So my wife sees her and she's praying off to the side, but not like, oh, dear God, please help me, like really intense praying. And she immediately after that, after a couple minutes, she walked and she started praying for people, and she started doing it. Yes, that's resources were there, but take that to the level even when you're at home. If you're a homeless person, just be like, and pray, like, man, is this the moment that I'm supposed to do it? The time is the greatest thing you can give to a homeless person. Yeah. And we lose that. And if you can give them that time, that's more important than a sandwich, more important than a shirt or anything.
It's good. Yeah, I was gonna say, talk about that for a second. The difference between like what we feel like is help and what you have come to experience that a lot of the homeless community like really desire.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that, and you guys can probably relate to in your ministries, I don't understand with homeless ministry why we don't listen to the homeless people. I feel like we think we have answers, but we don't talk to the homeless people. The one thing I can never give my credit, me and my wife always talk about this, how we can give credit for Project 54, is we do all these things, the Bible studies, helping out the other missions, to the events, even to what we cook, is all because what homeless people have told us, right? And it was funny, you guys know Eric. Eric was formerly known as New York. I first met him a little over a year ago, and I was talking to him, and I kind of was trying to do a promotion for Project 54, and I arrogantly asked Eric, do you think God could change Skid Row? And he said no. I was kind of taken back because I thought, for sure the answer would be yes. And he said, I didn't understand that his belief was he was agnostic. He didn't believe in anything, or he didn't really know what was going on. So he said no, because God would need Christians to do his work for him, but Christians don't care about us. They give us stuff and then they walk away.
Mm-hmm. So this is where because we're talking about the individual, and we all have roles to play individually when we see someone that's homeless. But the question that keeps coming to my mind, and this is where it relates to the short-term missions episode that we did, is what is the role of us as a collective, as a corporate body that we call the church? Like, what is our responsibility here? And I've begun to tie this to a lot of different things, and I'll say the thing that I start to tie it to is how we understand life, right? So the church does a really good job at protecting life for certain things, at certain maybe politically advantageous things, right? So we're talking about like pro-life, the abortion debates and all that. And that's all something we should be. We should protect the life of the unborn, all that sort of stuff. That's not what I'm talking about here. I think we don't extend that ethic, that pro-life idea out far enough, right? And I think this is where it comes into, where we don't consider homeless people. We don't consider them life, I think, as a collective. And I think this is where we've started to fall short. So what I think we need to start working on is starting to see these people on Skid Row as like, why? I mean, because how hard is it to listen to them, right? I know one of the stories was like they wanted eggs. How hard is it the next time we go up to cook for them to bring eggs, right? But for so long we've been sort of slamming our head against the wall, saying that's not what they need, that's not what they need, that's not what they need this. So we bring up what we think they need and not what they want, right? What they're sort of
So is that part of the story, the narrative that we tell each other, the safe route, so that we don't actually have to get our hands dirty because it's complex? And so what we do is we go, here, we're going to drop off sandwiches, then we're going to leave. We're going to feel good about each other, about ourselves or whatever. And we keep putting them in that same box. Like you're saying, we're not treating them as humans. We're not treating people as people, or we don't adopt, or we don't take care of the orphan. We don't take care of because it's it's getting our hand. It's messy,
right?
And it's complex. Like
right.
I mean, to your point, Kyle, is it is very messy.
I think that to go off on that, I would actually like to put it this way. I think we forgot how to love as Christians, to be honest. Yeah. And I think that we are so selfish in this generation. And I remember one day, I texted you, Travis, and I was just like, I'm so sick of watered down Christianity, and because I had an incident happen with me on the streets. And I think why we're watered down so much is because we're not teaching how to truly love people anymore. Because what Eric was telling me on that is that I need love. I can't see God. You have to show it to me, right? And the only way you can really do things is you have to completely invest your whole life in something and say, I love you so much, and this is how I'm going to do it, right? So I think to extend on that, I think another problem is we totally forgot how to love in our generation. And that's what Eric really is. And Eric, when his testimony, he always talks about, he's like, look, someone finally came and showed me that they loved me. Right. And I always talk about it on our events, that when I asked Eric if we can bring anything to Skid Row that would help, what do you think would truly help? And he said, can you bring just one other friend that loves me as much as you do?
Right. And so I think there is this danger that we get in, this danger, this rut that we get into where we always, and I'm coming from a place of honesty, this was me even before Kyle, you and I started talking about Project 54, last year and all that, is that I always think it's someone else's problem, right? I think someone else in the church will do it, or I think someone else will take care of it, because I don't consider it I didn't consider it a human problem. I considered it like a logistical problem, right? And that's just not what I was, right? I wasn't. Skid Row wasn't something that I could fix myself, right? But I never considered the human cost of not stepping in and doing whatever I could do, even if it's not a whole lot, right? Even if it is just going up once a month to talk to some people up that live up on Skid Row.
So are you saying even that when we sit together, we see ourselves as individuals, not a corporate, quote unquote, corporate body who can actually do this? We go, somebody else will tackle that, and then somebody else will tackle that, or enough people will tackle that.
Maybe not even. It's not me. It's like, I'm not part of. Like, I still consider it a corporate problem. Like, I still think the church would be the best vehicle, best institution to tackle this problem. But I think, I'm not going to do it because and we can go to scripture, but like there's. When I talk about the body, there are different parts of the body, right? But I failed to see that me refusing. So like, if that's for the sake of the analogy, I'm the eyes, right? But if I'm not looking at the problem, the body can't go over there.
Yeah.
Right? And so
well done.
I think about the individual, we always put off the responsibility because we don't consider the human cost. But that means the body, the collective, the corporate body is going to fail, right, every time.
See, I think for me, the excuse I would make is like driving by somebody and I go, no, I don't need to like stop for this one person. Like that's that's not what I need to be doing. I need to like sit and figure out how to like impact this whole community. Right. And then literally like the quote popped into my mind. It pops into my mind every time I come up with that excuse that says, if you don't do something for somebody, like you'll most likely not do anything for anybody. Right. And that's what I find that I'm doing, is I go, no, I don't need to stop and help that one person. I need to go and dedicate some resources to help an entire community. And so then what happens is I don't.
So then how do you solve the false guilt? Because that's what we're really talking about. There's this sense of fault there, or guilt, and then maybe a little bit of false guilt. And I heard I think it's you guys know him, Andy Stanley said, don't feel guilty, feel responsible. And so at what point does a person stop? So how do you, not just to solve the false guilt.
I can tell you how I think
Okay.
We in America have decided to solve the false guilt, as we've said, well, those people deserve it.
Well, yeah, but which is the story.
But that's what we've done.
Which we've said you guys are less than, you guys are not. But what I'm asking the honor, because here's the deal. It goes back to what DJ Kyle was saying, was reading that book and going, when your resources meet a need. Okay, cool. So, but the argument would be is every time you pull off the freeway, you have a shirt on, right?
Right.
Or every time you pull it, you can pack it.
Not always.
I know. Depends on the day.
Hey, it's summertime. It's summertime.
It's rare.
Sun's out, guns out. I don't care.
That's right.
But I know what you're saying. Yeah.
But yeah, and so I think like I know a guy, he cruises around with these almost like, you know, your elementary school earthquake packets, you know, and he hands them out anytime you see someone, but with like multiple things. Hygiene kits, water, things that will at least sustain this guy. And he puts in a devotion in there and stuff. And I think he even has conversations with him. I don't know the extent of it. My point being is I got to this place where I can see a lot of guilt in my life, or I start feeling good. I can't go. And then eventually you go, well, if everyone does do something and gives themselves to something, and I think that's the bigger problem is not everyone is giving themselves to something. So at what point you can't have the company can't have all CEOs, right? To your point with the body, and so now you go like, okay, is this whole don't feel guilty, feel responsible, and then he kind of explains like, you know, some things that you need to do in light of whatever that thing is you're going to tackle, give your life to. I mean, James says true Christianity is take care of the fatherless, the orphan, the widow, right? And the and the homeless. Okay, well, if that's true Christianity, then none of us are exempt. We all have to jump in, and maybe the church would look crazier if we actually took that serious.
Well, and I think this even goes back to part of the again, going back to that short-term missions thing, is that we often find that we need to do that somewhere else. Right?
Yeah.
So we travel to go to do that, right? Not to rehash that debate, but we go somewhere else to do that, and I don't fully understand why. And we can get into it, but
it might
we
simply
often
be
don't,
because we want to avoid.
We don't want to see don't want to see the people like our literally our physical neighbors. We don't want to help, but we'll help our neighbors, our quote neighbors across, a plane trip away.
I think what you're talking about is because it's selfish desires. I think we want to get filled up in Africa. We want to get filled up in some other foreign country. And we get filled up by that, by giving that way, but we don't want to fill up ourselves and helping out our own community.
Right.
And we don't realize that there's a huge need in our community, and that's why we should do. And that's I think what a lot of people's big beef with the church is.
Right.
We want to take care of each other, but church wasn't meant to do that. Church, we're supposed to go make disciples of the nation, right? That's what Jesus, the last thing he told the disciples, right? Go do it. But we actually don't want to do that in our community.
You get better Instagram pictures in that.
Exactly. and the thing is just that, and we're talking about as a church need, but it really does fall down on individual need, because everybody's individually supposed to call to go do something. It's amazing what one conversation or just one stop can do, right? And to your point, Kyle, do I stop? The reason why I contacted Travis and I was texting him about weak Christianity, watered down Christianity, is because I got a call from my friend, and there was a homeless person in Skid Row, and he was just got done raining, and he was on 6th and Central. Central is a pretty main street that people drive by. The guy fell asleep and in the rain for 7 hours in under 40-degree weather in LA. He woke up. I had to wake him up and see what was going on, and he literally had his snot. It was like glass. He couldn't move because how cold he was. And he was sleeping in the rain without a tent and without a blanket. So got him food, coffee, we talked. I was grabbing him blankets, and he refused to go to the hospital with me. But why I was actually hurting in so much was how many Christians drove by that guy. Hundreds and hundreds of Christians saw a homeless person sleeping in the rain, and he borderline died. And we were going to let someone die because of inconvenience, or maybe because we don't know if we should stop or not. That's how scary not stopping is. And one of my favorite examples is our Bible studies on Tuesdays. We had a guy who was going down Gladys that was walking, literally go jump off the bridge. And he told us, and two of our volunteers went and asked him to come to Bible study with us, because we walk around and we ask people to go to the Bible study with us. And he said, as I was walking down Gladys to go jump off a bridge, I said, God, please tell me my life has meaning and send me a sign that I'm supposed to be alive. And somebody said, can you come to a Bible study? And he's like, and he said this in our Bible study, apparently God must have a purpose for my life. All because you stopped and said something. We don't understand what these people are going through. And it seems like a huge burden. But the problem with homelessness is that they live in hell. And I think that's another reason why it's complex. I bring up complex because we don't understand what hell is like. I don't understand what hell is like. I like to say I had a softball pitch life where it was easy for me to hit a home run, and some people have had a Randy Johnson fastball to the forehead, right? So we don't understand that, right? And there's something very meaningful. We had a guy named Rob in one of our Bible studies said, "You don't understand, Kyle. I believe in God, but I live in hell. I'm addicted to drugs, sleeping in tent, hearing gunshots. So it's just hard to see God when you live in hell." Yeah. So it's up to that individual person to go to that person and say, "Wow, talk to me about it." That's what you can do. And you can be a light when someone lives in hell. And I think that's the answer is kind of the other problem too, the complex problem, is that someone living in hell, yeah, man, it's up to our responsibility. This is why discipleship is so important. And this is where a lot of people have beef with our church because we feel like we're not our church, but our churches in general, that they're not doing enough. That we're not actually doing what God actually called us to do. You show me the Bible where it says, Jesus said, "You know what, just sit down in church all day and we'll be cool." You know, that was supposed to be the standard, you know. But Jesus set this amazing standard that it's almost hard to live by, and that's why we get frustrated and then we don't know what to do. But the only way we can do it is if we keep talking to one person at a time, one stopping at a time. That's how we fulfill it.
So you're talking, and we talked about this in episode 4, was a lot of it is just us trying to be I guess good stewards with the topic, right. Going, how do we figure this out? How do we actually even, you know, I think we touched, and I think we are fair on not only backyard missions but overseas missions, is saying there's a place for both, right?
Absolutely.
There's a place, and how do we resource that? How do we take people there back? How do we bring people to Project 54 and then bring them back into the real world, even in their neighborhoods or whatever? Keep investing in there, and I think, you know what I'm saying?
I think it's so important. This is why we as Christians have to push each other to take on burdens.
Okay.
Like, if you take on a burden, first of all, you guys brought up a great point in the missions. What do you do when you come back, right, from a mission? Because you just had this really great experience for a week, right? How do you counter that? Well, you still do the same thing in everyday life, right? That, no, I'm not serving children in Africa for a week, but you still have a chance to fight a burden when you're at home. And then that, you're still doing something. Because you can also, like, I do Project 54, but I have a friend who runs a nonprofit who helps transvestite prostitutes in China. That is no way my field of expertise that I know anything about. But she called and she's asking me to come out there and minister them, so we're trying to set up a way. Go and do it, right? You can do both. There has to. I think it's important to do both, you know? And I think that that's what Jesus actually wants us to do.
So one of the things that we've talked about going off that, Kyle, is really, why are we actually here? Right. So for the listeners out there that are going, this is great, but like, what is my job description? One of the conversations we've had is about poverty. And I think that the word poverty brings up a whole lot of pictures in people's minds. And it usually has something to do with
lack of resources
or lack of resources or whatever. But you've always inspired me in the way that you've gone after poverty in a much bigger sense. So can you maybe give us a few words on really what poverty means?
Yeah, I think that I had this great conversation, and I talked to you guys about a guy named John Hahn who helps out distribute funding for homelessness. And he told me one time, and when I started Project 54, and I still try to, like, how can I constantly try to learn more and more about it. So we had a meeting about that, and he asked me about poverty, and he said, how would you explain poverty? And I said, a lack of material things. So he said, wealth is abundance of it. I said, yeah. He's like, you are what's wrong with Christians. Straight out called me out, and he said, your Project 54 is going to fail. And I was just like, I know, harsh, right?
Sounds like an encouragement.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's true though, that if you go and he said, you can go to Africa and people live in huts, but that's just their culture and their community, and you call them poor, they would be very upset with you. And he's like, it's lack of spiritual and emotional health. And on this journey that I've been going on, I could totally see it. You know what I mean? And that's what true poverty is. That's what we're trying to solve, right? Is how do you get that, when someone's living in hell, how do you get that spiritual wealth? Because I blame Christianity for Skid Row, And people, I know that's kind of crazy, but I think he's exactly right. We have a bunch of poor people helping poor people. You give someone clothes, and you say, well, I did my deed today, I gave, right? But then all these homeless people will tell me, oh yeah, I just sold it for drugs, right? So did you really help? You know what I mean? Do you understand the culture? Do you understand the community? What's the most important thing too that you're trying to do? And I think when we have people that come to Project 54, they have a hard time with it at the start, and then like later on they'll get it, and they're like, that's right, like if he dies, but he knows God and he's saved, and not only that, I know for a fact that if Jesus is in your life, it can change life and the spiritual health that we have and how happy we are. Did we do more for that person than anyone ever could? You know what I mean? And if that person finds God, I'm willing to bet that if you put God in someone's life, he'll change their life.
So this is something that we did talk about at the short-term missions episode, and this is where I think the tension really comes in. Because essentially, if I'm hearing you right, and we've talked about this, you're saying the need of Skid Row is not material, it's spiritual, right? So how do you get those people who live there to trust you? Because one of the things I said on the short-term missions is that sometimes when you go to a place and you're only trying to bring the gospel, sometimes they don't trust you because you don't understand their some of their other needs that they consider more important than that, right?
Yeah.
So how do you deal with that? I understand, and again, this is something that I've come to learn, is that the people of Skid Row often can get fed 3 times a day, or
13.
13, that's right, 13. And there are people coming to donate clothes all the time. So then it tells me, well, clearly that's not the material, right? So I think what missions comes down to, and I think this is something that I've had to learn, is missions comes down to addressing the correct need, not the need that I think they have, but the need that they actually have. So how did you, I know Eric just told you, like, hey, if you could bring another friend down to me, but like, how do you attempt to parse that out?
Once again, it goes back to love. Discipleship is love. You have to show love. You know what I mean?
What does that look like?
Just how the Bible says.
All right, well, let me throw this out, Jake, because here's what I hear you saying is, first, like anything, we naturally try to fix so that we can avoid. So instead of listening, we try to fix, right? But if we would just listen, we would actually hear what the other needs in this situation, whatever the situation is. That could be with your spouse, to listen. And so you began to listen. And then you began to hear, we need eggs. But really, right, is you heard we need friendships, we need relationships. And so it's easy, I would argue, it's easy. Even if you don't have it, it's easy to invest things and money because it's safe.
And it's easier, I guess,
and
definitely.
There's no complexity there. Here's your sandwich, here's your jacket,
and we're done. And
then we're like, all right, we did it. And I would even argue that that's why people don't invest long term, because there is no return in that.
Right.
There's no real return, and so the way to change it is to actually give yourself, to invest yourself without, even though you still will, without any expectation of return. So So you chose Eric.
Well, literally everything, not just
not just
every
your whole life.
Because if you go and you just ask, like, what is love? 1 John 3:18. You know, it's your actions. You know what I mean? And Jesus set this example, right? That I'm gonna die for you, and that's what love looks like. Literally sacrifice everything. We don't know about that as humans. Like, we really have a hard time with what actually love is. You know what I mean? That's why there's no greater love to someone that, you serve your country in the military, right? Because you're willing to lay down your life for something that you truly believe in, right? But what does love look like exactly? It's literally giving everything, right? If I came to my wife, I love using this example, that if I went to my wife and my wife's like having a horrible day at work and she's fighting with her boss and everything kind of sucks, and I came to her and I said, oh, I bought you a dress. My wife would not say, man, does Kyle love me? You know what I mean? Oh, that was nice. You know what I mean? That was cool. You thought of me. That's cool. But if I went to my wife and said, you know what? Let's go to Catalina. The kids are taken care of. I already have meals planned. I got you your favorite, I bought you a dress, that one you really wanted. And then over dinner, we talked about what was going on in her life. And we just had this whole thing. Because my wife's going through a really hard time, my wife would be like, wow, he really thought of everything. He really wanted to invest in me and my concerns, and he saw a need, and he really tried to continually be there, right? So that's the same thing with homelessness, is that people forget it just wasn't that with Eric. With Eric's story is one of the most things that people forget is one day I saw Eric eating out of a dog bowl. And this answers your question how to start. Eric was eating out of a dog bowl, and for the first time in my life, it hit me really hard. I said, this is what we came to, like someone eating out of a dog bowl? Like that's it. My heart was just hurting. Problem is, there's addiction, then there's level that Eric was addicted to. Eric, anything that you give him will get sold for more drugs. And this is where I argue with people that you shouldn't just give money. Find out what their needs are, who they truly are. So he went to Color Me Mine, and me, my wife, and kids, we painted them bowls and cups. And my whole thinking was, he's, who would sell a 2-year-old, cup that painted for her, right? So Eric opened it and started crying. It was the first time he ever hugged me. And then it was another thing. Then he lost his tent. Everything got stolen. So we bought him a tent, and the most expensive thing I ever bought him, $40. But in the tent was a Bible. Eric pulled out that Bible and started crying over that Bible and put it to his head and promised me he'd read it every single day, which he still does. And the reason why is because I continually was there throughout the process and see their needs. It wasn't you just showed up and said, peace, okay, you got something. It was, look, I'm going to show you God is real because I love you so much. I'm going to show you what love actually looks like. And scripturally, God is love, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that's why I tell my team this, that, that if you want to, Matthew 5:16, right? Let your light shine so others may see your good deeds and follow the Lord. Who is that light? We need to be that light to these people. And if you're there constantly, it changes lives if you're just involved,
So I think I heard Francis Chan say this, and it goes through, a lot of times he says, lay down your life means to die. And I think he says, you're willing to die, but are you willing to live for somebody?
Yeah.
Right? And so I would argue it's almost you're living for that person.
Yeah.
Right? Like you're taking your life and you are living for that individual. Yeah. Right? And you are giving yourself. And his point was like, it's almost, it's self-serving to die. Like it's heroic, almost easy. But to actually live for that person, to go spend time, spend money, and not just a one-stop kind of deal, but to keep going back. And I think, there is a place for overseas missions. There's a place for local missions. But one of the scary things with local missions is, I think you brought up, is you could go back tomorrow. You could go back next month. You could go. You don't have to raise $3,000. You don't have to raise $1,500. Not talking down on global
Absolutely
missions.
not.
It's just the fact that you could go to a Bible study, or you could be active, continuously active in that community.
And this is why, going back to that, I still struggle with whether short-term missions in and of themselves, like by themselves, there's nothing else around, are effective, because to your point, Travis, that you said that death is sort of the easier one. It's because there's a finality to death. You can't give anything else, right? But if you live for someone, you are continually being asked to give for them.
Yeah.
And so same thing, like if it's a short-term mission and that's it, if you partner with a long-term mission there,
Absolutely.
totally fine. Like that's what you should be doing, and then you come home and that's great because you've learned, you've grown, and the people there have gained from you being there. But to like local missions and global missions, if they're long-term, it's a continual sacrifice. You always have to do more. There's never an end date, right?
Yeah.
Whereas like with death or with a short-term mission, it's like you go there and you're done and that's it. Mm-hmm. That's the easier one because you cannot give anymore. But then,
yeah. To Kyle's point is,
right.
Tell your wife, hey man, we had a date.
We had a date 5 years ago. We had a date 5 years ago.
Yeah,
We're done.
you were good. It was a good date.
We got married, didn't we?
I think we actually do more harm when we do stuff like that. I think when we go in, first of all, I always find it funny, and I've had conversations with you guys about it. We go to places and minister to people where we don't give them a Bible. That just beyond, it doesn't make any sense to me. Like, hey, here's God, but no follow through, no nothing. Hopefully you learn that from a little bit. You know what I mean? Yeah. I almost think that, and plus, if you just go there, how do they know that's legit if there's no follow up? Oh. You know what I mean? And that's exactly what you're saying. And that's why I think you should push yourself, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't minister to someone, but maybe help out the people that are going through these things and just contribute to what they're doing in the process of it. But it's just, I think it also, we forget that it's also another level. What that if you pushing yourself internally to constantly do this there and here, what is it doing to yourself? You're going to keep learning how.
So would you say, because back to DJ Kyle's point too, and this is what I was going to ask, and I kind of lost my train of thought, but it almost seems that when you and I have had very candid conversations about, people's lack of willingness to get involved and get dirty and stuff, right? And I say like, well, who were we 5 years ago, right? Where was I at 5 years ago? And so, because we have to be honest with ourselves, and this guilt, false guilt, whatever feeling of I need to be responsible for something, I need to go long term with this, is it seems that the way in which we actually move forward is through doing and through educating. So you didn't have a team when you started. You just started. You just do it. To your point, it's like, what am I gonna do? I gotta solve the whole problem. You're like, you solve the whole problem. You enter it in here, right? And so you get to this place where you can actually see. What we try and do is we try and go, I'm gonna solve the problem right now. You can't do that. You just have to enter it in like that. So, but then on the other side, and then I even see, because I watch and I observe, and you see people, they don't know what to say, they don't know how to say it, they're uncomfortable, they're awkward, rightly so. That you're entering into an environment in which you know nothing about, and you come in with a little bit of arrogance and a little bit of like, okay, and you're or maybe you're just scared. It's a scary thing to talk to a group of people. I don't care if they're homeless or they're rich. People have a hard time talking to wealthy people because they're intimidated by them. So there's that fear, you know what I'm saying? So it's a constant education or re-educating. I don't know, that is kind of a thought I have, is like, do you think that is moving forward is, okay, we see there's issues, but it seems that constantly educating and then actually just doing is the way in which we flip the culture? Yeah,
I think Ravi Zacharias said it perfectly in his book, Jesus Among Secular Gods. He said the best way to fight it is with knowledge and experience. Because if you constantly do your experience, say I have experience, I constantly do these things, well, eventually other people are going to be like, man, this guy got it. Like, what is he doing? This is amazing. I think the best thing you can do is not just telling people about something, and I'm really bad at that actually with Project 54, is I always assume, hey, they'll pick it up, right? Because if someone's doing something crazy, everybody else is going to be like, man, that guy's doing some crazy stuff. I need to do that. I need to do that and be around. I think that's the best example you can be, is just constantly pushing and to get the next generation to be like, wow, dude, these guys, because it keeps jumping on, right? You're going to jump on, you know what I mean? And that's I don't know. And I think that's where it kind of goes back to the church. We should push it. Us as Christians should just always be like, we all need to be doing crazy things. And I think that we all come to a point in our faith where we kind of just settle down. And we're just like, okay, I get it. You know what I mean? But we're not challenging ourselves always and always and always, you know? And I think that once you take on a burden, when you fight that burden, God's going to keep opening doors. Oh, yeah, what about this? What about this problem? What about this problem? What about this problem? And then he keeps pushing you.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but...
Yeah, no. I don't know why I want to ask Ryan this, but do you think we've come to a place... And again, not just trying to figure this out, but we become content with knowing about instead of doing. We become a culture of, I want to know more, I want to know more, I want to know more, and we're just so filled up with knowledge, yet not really. Maybe it's like a pseudo, but there's a lack of doing. Or do you see, especially as a guy that helps facilitate missions, do you see? Not that, like, I believe that there's a desire to do so. I just don't think there's enough people leading it. Yeah. And so therefore, but we also have created a culture where knowing the latest, and hearing the latest. Yeah, I guess I hear all these clever lines in sermons, and I say, if you like the line, do the line.
Yeah.
Right. Do the quote. You like the quote, do the quote now. But everyone's content with liking the quote. They don't do the quote. And I'm not bashing them. I'm just saying I think that's an air we breathe, maybe.
Yeah. Kyle, one of the reasons I respect you so much and why I love what you got going on is because you understand this, what I'm about to say. But Trav, to your point, I think one of the biggest problems is when we have the flashy one-liner that can get tweeted out, we kind of paint Christianity into a quick fix, kind of a way, quite kind of a mentality where it's, okay, I'm supposed to love, so if I go love, then there won't be any poverty anymore. You know, or like, okay, so we went and did that brunch, so here we go.
So we solved it.
Right. And it's, it is I don't mean to make light of it, it's a serious thing because what I've seen in my own life and what I see constantly in the church is burnout. Right, where when you're sold, hey, we're going to go do this and it's going to fix everything, and then a year, 2 years into it, it hasn't fixed that thing, then you go, well, I just wasted all my energy doing this. And that's not true. The energy hasn't been wasted. It's just that this is a journey, and this is something that is a lifetime, and it's going to go through the generations of we are constantly going to be fighting this battle. And so I think just educating people and me having to remind myself that, hey, this is a process, and which is why I thank God for people like you, Kyle, who are on the ground going, no, we're going to do this thing long term, and calling other people to join you in that is the solution. It's just that I don't know. I guess what I want listeners to hear right now is the effort that you've put in for the last year, the last 2 years, last 5 years, or whatever, it hasn't been wasted. God uses all of that, and He's using that to shape you. He's using that to shape the community that you're helping out in, and so don't be discouraged. Keep going. Keep pressing in and keep seeking this, because although there's not a quick fix, life change does happen. And Kyle, you've got stories for days about that life change happening because you get to see the fruit. I just think that sometimes the fruit doesn't come as quick as we hope it will, and then we get discouraged and kind of hit the eject button.
Or we're wired for.
Well,
Right?
yeah. I mean, I think there's this. I mean, it's a very Western thought.
Yeah.
The silver bullet idea is a very Western thought, right? It comes from rationalism. It comes from Enlightenment rationalism, and we want the argument, we want the thing. This even speaks to evangelism, right? And apologetics. Like, not that those are bad things, but we want the one thing that we can say, like, this is the one line I can tell someone and then they'll believe. This is the one argument I can tell and they'll defeat all their doubts. And we are wired this way because it's, one, we're educated this way, where it's built into our culture, it's built into, I mean, America started as an Enlightenment political experiment, and so it also ended the Enlightenment, so that should tell you a lot. It's a historic, anyway.
Okay.
So we're not going to get into that, but that is part of what the way we're wired. At this point, I think it's far enough that we're wired to think that way. We're wired to want we're results oriented. I mean, that goes into, I mean, our society and culture is a results-oriented culture. It's a to your point earlier when you're saying, like, Travis, I think you're making the difference when you're saying, like, we want something, we want to do something and then be done. That's a transaction versus a relation, right? So we're transactional, we're not relational. Yeah. We want the receipt that says Skid Row is done, right? That we've paid off Skid Row and it's never going to be that way, right? Because that's not the problem. The problem is the people that live in Skid Row want friends, want people to come up and love them. It's a relationship.
They want you to go to college for life,
right? And relationships don't really end in that traditional sense.
It's good, and right? you see where that adds into the frustration of somebody going, we helped them for a year and it hasn't been solved yet. That's on them, because this issue is so much deeper than what does that help look like. Right. And so we're going, well, I did my time, I got my receipt, so why didn't we fix it? Right. Well, because we taught them the wrong thing to begin with. This is just, there's a tension here that you have to just learn to live into, and Kyle's about to jump out of his seat, so I'm passing it to you. Go.
And I don't know if we're on the same page, but we went to lunch and I don't even remember this, we came back and it was raining, we were in your car and we were having conversations, and even to your point, Ryan, encouraging listeners and people who really want to do something, make an impact. And I think deep down is you said this, and let's be fair, is you're like, I've wanted to quit Project 54 over 30 times, right? And so you have to have this, spiritual grit or whatever, and so that element's there. That's people are going to want to quit their marriages. The best marriages want to quit sometimes. It just is what it is. And so how do you kind of move forward from there? And I remember you and I having this conversation and going like, why me? Why me? Why me? I'm like, it has to be you because you're weird and crazy, man. Like, in a good way. It has to be you. And then I asked you this question. I said, okay, so are you just gonna be another flyby, right? Are you just gonna be one more pop-up tent that went out there and gave some sandwiches, or you actually, and you had to decide that. You have to decide that. You have to decide that every day is how are you going to build this and how are you going to see it continue to move forward even after you're dead.
Yeah. I was gonna say one more high schooler that tried to start a t-shirt company.
Yeah. Yeah. And are you gonna outlast that even when 2 years into it? Like Ryan's point is it gets hard, right? And that's something you have to probably wrestle with every single day.
It actually, I'm actually intrigued to see what you guys say about this, because it actually hurts my heart when you say something like that. Like, because it actually hurts me as a Christian now, where I'm at in my life right now, or just the thought that I'm not going to push myself or that I gave up. And I think that what is with our faith now, that our new generation of Christians are just saying, we are not meant to be crazy. We are not meant to go do crazy, amazing things. That we are meant to be just sit at church and be individuals and get what we want.
Yeah.
I just think we're missing so much out of our faith. And this is coming, and you guys know my story. I was a worship leader for years. I've been involved in my faith so much. But I have grown so much in this year and a half because I found God on Skid Row. And I tell people this, and they're like, what? I'm just like, church is great, and I love it. I know why God wants us to go be disciples. Because it's changed my heart, and it'll change everybody's heart. And then eventually what happens is you get a group of Christians that come around each other that are just as crazy. So when you want to fall down, they say, nope, this is a God thing. Yeah. This is how you do it. So why is it that, do you guys feel in our Christian community now, we kind of took the back seat? That it's just kind of what you guys were even saying earlier. It's all about knowledge. I need to get that one line, and that will do things. But that was never meant Christianity is supposed to be. That was never meant. Why has it come to that point in our faith?
Because there is a moment when the hype wears off. There is a moment when the high wears off and the goosebumps and the emotionally driven charge to go change the world wears off. And in that moment, that's when you come face to face with the reality of why am I doing this? And if the answer is self-serving reasons, you're out. If the answer is something deeper than that, then it can turn into something very beautiful. But I think we need to equip people to, one, give the emotionally driven charge to go change the world. Absolutely, I do it every time I'm on stage. But there also has to be at a deeper level of conversations like this where we go, okay, and that hype is going to wear off. And so when it does, I want you to be ready to double down and press in all the more and have people around you that are going to keep you moving in the right direction.
I also think it goes back to your point that we've misunderstood what poverty really is, right? I think if you look at the history of the church, is that the moment it became powerful, the moment it became tied up in the power of humanity, right? That it was political, it was institutional, and all that. And I'm not against institutionalized churches. I'm not against all that. But the moment Christianity gets tied into the Holy Roman Empire, as soon as that happens, I mean, and that's just a moment, but I mean, even in America, all that, that's where we take the back seat and said, okay, we're good. Ryan and I have talked about that. That's where, if you want to picture the image of a kingdom, right, the kingdom of God, that's where you raise up the drawbridge and, you circle the camp, you defend rather than engage, right? So the moment that it became powerful, like, well, we have to defend our position, we have to remain powerful. And to your point, Jesus was never about that. He was never about, you were never supposed to be the one in power. You were supposed to be the one powerless because you recognize
you don't have
a higher power. You recognize a higher power. You are not, the power isn't you, the power is outside of you. And so you can take that to other people. So the moment you become this drawbridge up, this wall building community, that's the moment that you take the back seat because you're only in a defensive position. You're never engaging, and that's what we're called to do, right?
I think too is that when we go do our fight, we forget about God. I honestly, and this is my question that I'll ask a million times over and over, and why is it that when we see a homeless person, well, if someone comes to church and they say, what's your main focus as pastors? I need to get this guy involved. I need to make sure God's in his life, and how can we spiritually lift him up? We go to a homeless person and we see all the physical needs, and we're like, let's abandon everything we just know that we're supposed to do, and let's worry about your physical needs. And it's just like we totally forgot about God, and we take God out of the situation, right?
I like that, yeah.
And I get so frustrated with that because but I get really frustrated because I feel like as Christians, it's like we're missing the point. And I think that's part of the burnout process, is you can only build so many buildings. We can only hand so many clothes, right? But God will, if you put God at the center of everything, you're basically saying that, God's not going to do enough. That's ridiculous, right? If you keep pushing God and you keep trying to do God's will and let God be the center of your life, it's just like anything, you're going to continually grow, right? And I think that, yes, there maybe sometimes you'll go through hard times with burnout, but that's where you have people and other resources. But I think that if anything, that we just lose focus of what God truly is. And there is a great point where Matthew Paris, and I think I said his name right, from England, and he's this huge atheist, and he talks about, he wrote an article, Why Africa Needs God, but he's an atheist. And he said basically his big mission is he has to go bring water to Africa, fresh water to Africa. And he used to say, Christians, bring your stuff and leave, right? But then he ended up saying, when he wrote this article, saying this actually hurts coming from an atheist perspective, but I've seen what Christians have done to the lives of the people in Africa. And that's what's really changing the culture in Africa. It's not the materialistic needs, it's that they're changing their hearts and they're changing their lives. And all of a sudden, now the mission comes that, well, maybe it's just not water. Maybe we should actually work at their hearts first and really try to change their lives. And then all of a sudden, all these Christians are coming down there and it's like more important now. Oh, maybe God's just the more important thing. And that's what's really spreading the message and really doing the revival in Africa, right?
That's it. That's good.
I love it.
Real quick, Kyle, if people want to get more information on what you're doing or how to get involved, where would you recommend they go?
We have, go to our website, project54outreach.org. Yeah, Instagram, Facebook, not too much on that stuff, but there's all the information on there. You can send us. We do our monthly events. Love to have people there. I try to say I'd want 200 people there. Two people for every homeless person would be the best thing for me, or our Bible study too. You can go there.
Do you have an email? The website has email and all that sort of stuff?
Yeah, you can hit us up at info at project54outreach.org.
So don't just show up.
Right.
Contact you first.
Yeah, contact me.
If you're in the LA area, if you're a local here, and you want to be involved, well, yeah, if you want to fly out, for sure, fly out. But
if you find yourself in
if
the
you
LA
find
area.
yourself and you want to email the organization. They're a great organization, and they'll talk you through a lot of like what you might need to do, listeners, to sort of get involved, which we all encourage you to do. So.
Yeah. Find your own Project 54 too.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. So if you're not in the LA area, start something there.
Yeah.
So.
Hey everyone, venture into the pop culture cosmos today, where you'll hear our conversations on different topics within the world of movies, TV, video games, comic books, technology, board gaming, and more. You'll also get a taste of some of our other shows within the cosmos as well. So come on and join us each week as we delve into the pop culture cosmos.
Welcome to the pop culture cosmos.
We hope you do listen to us and follow us on all of the social medias. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, like Humanican Media, follow them. And our Twitter handle is
at WAT_podcast.
And then Humanica Media.
Yeah, just Humanica, just at Humanica Media. That's
all right. And we'd love to hear your comments, your feedback, anything like that. Follow us, give us a shout out. respond to us.
Let us know what you want to hear.
Yeah, let us know what you want to hear. Let us know what you think about this episode. We want to know everybody's feedback. Wherever that takes place, wherever you find us, let us know what you think.
That to us people that can feel things, it hurts.